So how do emotions work? Well, in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the science of emotion, that's a different subject. I'd like to share with you an NLP perspective on how we create and build emotional states, so that you can then start to do it deliberately by design and improve the relationship you have with your emotional well-being. Hi, I'm Stephen Burns from Solutions in Mind, and today I'd like to take you through a simple but powerful model that I call the state loop. When it comes to creating and building emotional states, there are two main paths that we tend to use: the path of physiology and the path of imagination. So when I talk about physiology, I am of course talking about the way that you stand, the way that you move, your facial expressions, the way that you breathe. Every emotional state that we experience will have some kind of physiological blueprint attached to it. For example, stress will be very different in terms of a physical manifestation than, say, for example, deep relaxation. Bliss and happiness, I know that's a strange bliss and happiness, will be very different from sad and depressed. Every emotional state that we experience will have this physiological blueprint. So actually, by changing your physiology, you then actually make a change to your emotions. But then we also have the path of imagination. And put simply, this is basically what we're doing inside our mind, the trains of thought that we are focusing on. If, for example, I was to ask you to think about the happiest time from your past, maybe it was a time where you experienced a real success in something that was deeply meaningful for you. Or maybe it was the birth of your child or a time of, extreme love. If you were to think about that time for a portion of time, then eventually you're going to start to feel feelings that are associated with that memory. And that's because you're deliberately using your imagination to go back to the past and start to really recreate and build these powerful positive emotions. So then in the state loop, the next step we have is what's called the as-if space. There's no point in using your physiology or your imagination in some kind of half-arsed way. You really want to step in, you want to role play, you want to pretend, you want to act as if it is absolutely real and it's something that's happening right now. A great example of this is acting. There's a type of acting called method acting, and this is where if the actor is looking to get into a character, they really do get into them. It's almost like they live their lives for a portion of time. They'll copy their physiology, they'll pretend and imagine that they are them. So for example, if they wanted to play, say, the President of the United States, they would actually walk in the way that the President of the United States walks. They would speak in the way that they would speak, and they would actually imagine that they were them. They would step into the shoes psychologically inside their mind. This is a great example of using your imagination powerfully. It's where you act as if. You're not just doing it in a very dissociated way, you're really role-playing, you're pretending this is your reality. So when you use your imagination, your physiology, and you act as if, you then move on to the next phase of the state loop, and that is neurology. When you're doing all these things, eventually you start to affect your neurology. You start to create shifts in your sensations. Now, what I'm talking about here are things like tingles in your stomach. Maybe it's a warmth or a glow across your chest. Or perhaps you felt heavy previously and then you start to feel really quite light. Or maybe it's something else. Every emotional state that we experience will have a set of neurological sensations. And as you start to use your imagination, your physiology, you'll really start to create and experience these deliberately. And then once you experience these shifts in neurology, you then move on in the state loop to the label. So this is where we take all the experiences that we're currently having and then we attach a label to it. So we of course give different labels to different emotional states. We have things like confidence or relaxation or anxiety, stress, happiness, bliss, motivation. The list goes on and on. And this is essentially where we bring cognition into play and we add some kind of summary to what we're experiencing in that moment. Now this is generally happening unconsciously, but we can actually hijack the process and take charge of it so that we have more influence over the emotions that we build and create. We don't have complete control, I think that's absolute nonsense, but we do have a certain degree of influence. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and it's gave you some insight into how you create and build emotions. Now, the state loop is only one small aspect of a larger training program called the NLP Personal Transformation course. If you want to check out that course, then head over to the Solutions in Mind website. You'll see all the information there. Also, if you'd like to keep up to date with future updates, future content, then please do subscribe to the channel. So, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.